It's bad. Honestly, for this video, I'm just going to say what comes to mind. I'll obviously script this out so I can actually make it past multiple sentences without stuttering or forgetting what to say, but I'm just going to write what comes to mind and not structure it like a proper analysis, or like what I've done in the past. But yeah, it's bad. I haven't made an Omori video in a while, but I haven't made a follow-up video to the Omori manga in over a year. After the first chapter, and after seeing how sheerly disappointing it was, I really tuned out hard and just stopped caring about the manga because of the reasons, which I described in my last video on the manga, which you should go watch. If any of you like me are watching this video, you might not have caught up with the manga, and to be honest, I can't really give an exact summary of where we're at. The gang is currently at last resort, as well as the scene with the sleepover between Hiro, Kel, and Sunny, but that's about where the story itself is at. Any and all narratives are gone. Everything's gone. I'll try to explain what I mean, mainly as a fan of the game. It's impossible to speak as someone who isn't a fan of the game, since I love the original game so much, but just analyzing it from a basic writing standpoint, it's just not good. While reading through chapters 2 to 13, I made a comprehensive list of every single narrative choice that objectively conflicted or canceled out a narrative from the original game, or impacted the overall story negatively in some way. And on that list, it totaled to over 3,153 words and 13 pages. That's almost entirely objective story changes made from the original game that only work in the context of the original game, that don't work in this setting because of pacing and other factors. Oh yeah, don't even get me started on the pacing. Horrible. People always talk about how Omori's pacing was so bad and how it was the worst part of the game, and to that I say, have you read the manga? So many of the payoffs and plot points in the original game only work in the context of the original game. What I mean is that we get time to sit on specific events and their connotations while we play through segments of the game. We get time to think about what happens. Some people would have it that they spend the entire game in the real world, and to that I say, would you really? The game does not have anywhere near the amount of payoff that it would have if you go through each of the headspace sequences. As I said, we get time to analyze what just happened before suddenly jumping right back into core parts of the story. I honestly couldn't fit all my thoughts in one video even if I tried, but I'll try to just go over a few core issues that I have with the manga. If this script sounds incoherent, it's because it is. First of all, the pacing. Dear God, the pacing. Have you ever wondered why mangas take hundreds of chapters to conclude? That's because you need time to associate and familiarize yourself with the characters. Mangas are not built overnight. That is to say, you don't get into a manga and then 2 chapters in expect to feel emotion from large plot twists. In this manga, if you want to read it for yourself, you transition from headspace to the real world constantly. Almost every other chapter you're in the middle of reading something, and then you immediately transfer over to an entirely separate chapter of the story. There are so many jarring instances where you're in an intense event, and then 5 panels later, you're in an entirely separate section of the story. Oh yeah, aren't you supposed to actually like characters and understand them whenever stuff starts to happen? It's sad that I had to say this, but almost all of the key conversations and reveals happen early in the story from where we currently stand. From a fan of the series, it's depressing that narratives have to be messed up because of certain scenes in which they happen, and the order in which they happen, but it's so much worse for an outside fan. Being a fan who knows nothing about the game and looking at the manga, you do not know who these characters are. Key events regarding childhood trauma and past relationships, unknown transitions between important scenes and magical fantasy adventures, it all means nothing. You cannot expect a normal reader to pick up any manga and then immediately become invested with a set of characters 2 chapters into reading them. You want an example? I'll give you one. Take the church scene, right? Extremely emotionally high scene, one of the best scenes in the game. You've got a few hours to understand the general flow of Sunny's situation and the emotions of those around you. In the manga, 3 chapters. You get 3 chapters to be with the characters before this massive scene happens. No outside reader coming into the series would ever be able to associate enough with the characters to actually feel something from this encounter. That is why there is so much, quote, filler in Omori. Even though the word filler has basically lost all its meaning at this point, filler as a concept is still important.
There's been a revisionist narrative going around, and not just with Omori, that if something doesn't immediately move the plot forward, it doesn't matter. Filler is one of those words that have lost their meaning as it's unbelievably overused. Look, like it or not, headspace is not filler.
People just seem to think that if something doesn't advance the plot, then it doesn't matter and that it's, quote, filler. And this is a prime example of filler, not in the sense that people normally use it, is important. I always hate when people say there's so much filler, and even though it could be debated if there actually is filler in some parts of Omori, it does not matter. You've got hours in headspace to associate yourself with the identities of the characters. The first headspace sequence can take a couple hours, and that's already so much more development from the characters that you get to see in the manga. Ever wonder why it takes so long to get to the first real-world segment of the game where you'll go outside? You need to develop alongside the characters and be invested in the story. That's what makes the game so impactful. You need investment, you need immersion, you need time. Time is what we're missing here. You want a general example of how to do things? Take Jujutsu Kaisen for an example. What if Nobara got incapacitated by Mahito in Chapter 5? Would you care? As a fan coming into the series, you've got no time to associate with Yuji, Megumi, and Nobara, so what payoff or shock value would it have? It's like introducing a side character in a movie that has potential, and then killing them off 10 minutes into the movie. Like, yeah, it sucks that this person died, but who cares? That's why Gandalf dies, for the first time, at the end of Fellowship of the Ring. If he died at, like, the encounter with the ring race, who would care? You only knew that he's a friend of Bilbo, but you don't know him personally. You need time to see him on screen and understand him and see how he reacts with the other characters, and then you can develop a connection, and then immersion. And then, at that point, anything that happens to the character, you would enjoy, you would be immersed in, and you would care. But that's enough examples, and I think you probably understand what I'm getting at. Okay, so that's pacing and filler and whatever done. It's not good. Fundamentally, it makes everything bad, and that's really it, right? It's fundamentally bad. Immersion is ruined. Isn't immersion Omori's whole point? Isn't that the whole reason why silent protagonists work? Isn't that the whole reason why any of the story works? Immersion? All the payoffs happen before there's any immersion in the manga. Let's just move on to narratives.
Profit. And there's no money in here. How delightful.
Squidward, I'm worried about
Omocat.
There is quite literally nothing left from the original game that I can talk about. We're up to chapter 13 and there's nothing left. Going back to my original list of issues regarding the manga, I was going to go over them, but there are so many that it's not even worth it. Here are images of each page and what I have to say. Don't you see how much it is? You can pause to read, but I wouldn't blame you if you didn't. This is all narratives or events that drag down the effectiveness of the original game story while also affecting the quality of the manga story. Every single bit of it. What do we even pay attention to? Why should we care when characters like Pluto are missing? Weren't characters like that half the game's original charm and headspace? The quirky humor? All of it? I don't know. When I finally got to the last resort section, I kind of realized something. It's just really not worth it. It doesn't have anything resembling the charm or storytelling that the original game had. I was just struck with a feeling of soullessness that I haven't actually felt before. My favorite story of all time, and I can't even appreciate basic aspects of the game in this setting. Unlike some people, I kept an open mind about the manga going into it. I was not going into the manga wanting to dislike it. Even though an Omori manga would physically not be possible to be good, I was just going in and wanting to review it and see if it could even stand a little bit of the test of time. And no, it doesn't. You wanna know how I just said soullessness? I really feel like Omori as a brand is becoming soulless. The original game will forever and always be a masterpiece. I will always keep it close to heart. But have you seen the stuff that Omocat has been pumping out? All the art exhibits, Omori perfume, Omori Honda, like seriously? What game starts as an absolute passion project and then leads to its single mastermind behind the game deciding to make perfume and a car and other stuff based off of it just for the money? You can say it's out of love, but it's just corporatizing the success and making it more than it should be. Omori is a game that is to be enjoyed and discussed and appreciated. The plushies and keychains are cool, and the basic merch stickers like that are cool, but stuff like the perfume is just pushing it for me. Oh yeah, can't forget about the artist. You know, it's a bit of a controversial topic, but this script is so long that I really don't care, and people probably aren't going to watch this far anyway. You know, once I saw and heard about who the artist was, I still held on to a little hope. A little hope regarding what exactly? I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting from a yaoi boys love incest artist. If Omocat actually cared about Omori anymore, would she really have chosen an artist like that to create a manga adaptation of her story? She knew who he was, and she knows how her fans feel about that kind of stuff, and she knows what she has gotten into trouble with in the past, and she didn't change anything, she didn't direct course.
They were already in hot water for this kind of stuff, so I have no idea what they were thinking. Considering much of Bob's profile was deleted in the months leading up to release of the manga, it's safe to assume this was a way of saving face.
I don't like the art, but that's not an objective issue. I'm just getting it off my chest. If you look around the soullessness and narrative-deprived state of the manga, and all the merch surrounding the IP, and just the sheer idiocy of releasing the manga to only American and Japanese readers, it paints a very clear picture. The manga was never a passion product, it was only the game. We got the game out of pure love and dedication, and as far as I'm concerned, it's perfect. But that is all we got. I know this ending to the video sounds cynical, but as the intro said earlier, this is relatively unhinged, and was mainly meant to be a live commentary video with some minimal editing. Before I end this video, I do want to say that the end of the last few chapters is actually clear that they're going for a different way of telling the story, especially with that scene of Aubrey talking to her dad and mom. I do want to find something to give a positive reception to, and it is an interesting idea, but nothing really matters from an outside and inside perspective anymore. It was flawed from the very first chapter. Heck, it was flawed even before its conception. I didn't really care about the connotations of adapting a video game into a manga, I just wanted it to be a good story. I never really commented about anything of the news on the manga because I wasn't a fan of the game when the manga was announced, and looking back now, it obviously wasn't going to be good from the start. I did just have some hope that it could at least be serviceable. The best piece of work that I have seen relating to this core point is Napoleon's video on the manga. It's extremely well edited and well put together, and I'll continue to glaze this video for as long as I live, as I pretty much agree with 100% of the video as a whole. Even watching the video again after reading this script and writing it, I can really see how even the conceptual birth of the manga wasn't a good idea. And combining the conceptual flaws with the writing and the narrative flaws and the current state of the manga, it just paints a horrible picture overall. It's absolutely botched. And it shows on the actual site itself. Over 800 comments on the first chapter on K-Manga, with there only being 194 on the next. You can really clearly see how little people actually cared to read the second chapter. Even now, there are a mere 9 comments on chapter 12, which released last month. It's not popular, was never gonna work, was flawed from the beginning, was made for money, and did not work, and worked even worse than anyone could have ever imagined. Alright, this was probably too long. When the manga concludes, I'll make another video concluding it all and wrapping up my thoughts in a nice little bow. It'll probably be much of the same thing from this rambling that I'll say, but I still want to tie everything up and be done with the manga as a whole when it's time. If you like the manga, that's great. I'd honestly like to know if there are people who actually enjoy the manga. There's no objective reason why anyone should enjoy it that I can find, but sometimes enjoying content is about what you like yourself. However, the aim of this video was to be objective as possible in every way. Anyway, enough stalling. Goodbye. I'll see you next time.